everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thrive. I'm your host, Carly, and I'm so excited that you're here today because we're going to be diving into something that is really important, which is creating a life and a business that actually feels good for you. And I mean really good, like not just good according to society's rules. I mean that feels really authentically, deeply good for you. And I've been thinking a lot about the buzz around this whole idea of flow and ease and everything needing to be effortless from the beginning. And while I love the vibe of alignment, I do everything from this place of it feeling good for me. I also think that we need to have a little chat about what it actually takes to build something truly amazing. Because if it is a full-time business that you desire, and when I say full-time, I do not mean 9 to 5. I mean that you are in your business and that's your jam and that's what you do. If that is what you truly want to create, then you need to understand that it's not all going to be rainbows. It's not all going to be journaling sessions and affirmations. Sometimes it's going to be hustle, right? But it gets to be hustle that feels aligned and that actually feels good for you. So I want to, pull back the curtain of what it really looks like and feels like to create a business and a life on your terms, which is what I've done and what I'm continuing to do, and the courage that it takes to kind of detach yourself from the rules of society and the mindset shifts that you might need to break if this is you. So first of all, let's kind of talk about hustle, right? There is a lot of talk and a lot of chatter these days about how hustle is toxic and how it's outdated and that you should be able to build your business based on flow and ease and it feeling really effortless right from the beginning. And as I said, I love and I believe in flow and I believe in alignment, right? But I also feel that this message is doing a lot of people a disservice, especially the people who are coming in brand new to business, people who are coaches and they want to create something based on their passion, based on their purpose, and they want to feel good while they're doing it. I believe that it's doing a lot of us a disservice. And I don't think that hustle is actually the villain here. In fact, I don't believe that you can create the results that you want in your business or in your life without some degree of hustle. But the key, I believe, is that there is a big, big difference between the kind of hustle that leads to burnout and feeling overwhelmed and, feeling like you're stretching yourself way too far, as opposed to the kind of hustle that feels really good. And we're going to call that aligned hustle, right? For the sake of differentiating the two. The aligned hustle, it gets to feel good. Okay. And this is where, you're putting in the work. You're showing up because you want to run a business. And spoiler alert, if you actually want to run a business that makes money and that you get to do as your kind of full-time gig as opposed to just a hobby, you're going to need to put in work. But it gets to feel purposeful. It gets to feel expansive. It gets to feel really exciting. And even though you might be pushing yourself to a degree, you actually understand that that is required because you're working towards something that really matters to you and that you feel really strongly about, and that you have this vision, and you understand that if I'm going to bring this vision to life and impact the people that I want to impact, make the income that I want to make, then I've got to put in the work. Whereas misaligned hustle, or is it unaligned? No, I feel like it's misaligned. Misaligned hustle, on the other hand, is when you're just grinding. You are grinding for the sake of grinding. You are consumed by what you're doing, and you are doing all over yourself. You're trying to keep up with what everybody else defines as success. You're trying to keep up with what you feel like you should be doing. You are following somebody else's rules. You are doing things because somebody else has told you that you have to do them. You're perhaps not checking in with yourself as to how that feels for you. Okay. So there is a vast difference between this aligned hustle and this misaligned hustle. And I will be completely honest with you, is that when you are brand new to business, it's not always going to feel easy and it's not always going to feel effortless. And I know, and I have spoken to so many coaches in my time, and I know that we all we all want it to feel really good, right? Like we want to come in and, especially in the more spiritual space, I guess we kind of come in and we're like, I want to just kind of manifest my clients, and I want to be able to just come in and post a piece of content and trust that if it's out there, then it's going to find the right people, right? And then we don't actually allow ourselves to shift perspectives and to see the other work that is required if we actually truly want to create this. Okay? It is not meant to feel super easy and super effortless to begin with. And anybody who tells you that it that it is probably lying to you. But starting something from scratch that you really, really care about and that you actually really want to build, like, it requires your energy, it requires your dedication. And oftentimes, it requires a little bit of fucking hustle. And I think that if you are expecting to go out into creating your own business and fully just shifting your entire life, and you want it to feel like a walk in the park, then you're setting yourself up for frustration, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, and you're probably not setting yourself up for longevity, because you're going to throw in the towel. Because at the end of the day, your expectations are not going to be met, and that's going to feel really challenging. Whereas if we can move into this place where we're like, okay, I want to start a business, I want to create something special, and this is what I want to do, I'm going to be required to work. I'm going to be required to tap into my courage, to tap into my willingness to actually put some effort in and to maybe hustle for a little while. Then I think you are managing those expectations like far more realistically. And I see and speak to a lot of people, as I said before, like these people that come to work with me and they're like, oh, Carly, like I've been trying to build my business and it hasn't worked. And so I ask them, like, okay, what sort of strategies have you been implementing? What are the things that you've been doing? And a lot of the time, the response is, well, I've been posting on Facebook and on Instagram. And then crickets, right? But these are, incredibly talented people, amazing people who are fairly new, I guess, to this world of the coaching industry and actually building a business. And they come in just expecting that everything is going to flow from day one. And I get it. I fucking get it. And I really do get it, because it's the dream, right? We want to leave our 9-to-5s in favor of something that we're going to feel more lit up by, and in favor of something that feels like we're going to be more on purpose, and in favor of something that feels easier. But most of the time, it's not going to be easier, especially in the short term. Okay? And yes, it is the dream to come in and everything just flows from day one, but is it realistic? It's probably not, right? What tends to be missing from that vision or from that dream is actually the work that it does take to create this flow. The systems, the offers, the mindset shifts, all of that sort of stuff in the background. It really does take time and it does take effort to build. And I'll share with you a story from my own personal journey. When I started my own business, honestly, if I could go back and do it again, I would hustle more and I would hustle harder earlier on. Because when I came in, I was very much of the view that if I build it, they will come. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I remember jumping in and I had this idea for a program, and I created the program and I spent weeks creating the program. I had like a 1-year-old child at the time, and I spent weeks in my office like creating and building this program. And I posted it on Instagram and I got crickets. And so then maybe a week later, I posted it again and I got crickets. And I was like, oh my God, you are kidding me. Like, I've just spent all this time. I guess that was my version of hustle, right? Actually putting the time and the energy into creating this program. And then no one came. Nobody bought it, right? And so then after a little while, I ended up investing in a coach, and she was amazing and she's still incredible. And I remember having this conversation with her, and I was like, I just want to coach. Like, I just want to coach. I just want to create programs. I just want to work with people. Like, I don't want to be in fucking marketing and have to create content all the time and have to actually sell. And she said to me, okay, you want to coach and you only want to coach. I am sure that you can go out and find a job where you can do that. But if you want to run a business, you've got to learn how to run a business. And that stayed with me. It hit me right where I needed it in that moment, and it stayed with me. So if you are in these sort of early-ish stages of your business, or maybe you're even in this phase where you're like entertaining the idea of building a business, like I want to really encourage you to embrace the hustle, but to know that you get to do it in a way that feels aligned. And also know that it's okay for it to sometimes feel like hard work, right? That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. And I think there is this message out there that it's like, if it feels really hard, you're not doing it right. Like it gets to feel easy. And does it get to feel easy? Yes. But also there are moments where it's going to feel very hard. There are moments where it's going to feel challenging. And all that means is that you're building something real. Yes, there is also the invitation there to have a look at, okay, could I get some support with this? Whether it's from a mindset perspective, an energetic perspective, or a strategic perspective, could I get some support in this? And the answer might be yes. But also no, like it does not mean that you are doing it wrong if it feels hard. It just means that you are on the way to building something that feels real for you. So I guess a little bit of a picture of the way that I currently live my life, okay? Because the way that I've created my life, my business, my lifestyle, the way that I live, the way that I move, it's been very intentional. And I feel very grateful that I get to experience freedom and I get to experience flow most days, okay? But that didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen from me just sitting back and waiting for it to happen like I thought and hoped that it would in the beginning. It took a hell of a lot of courage. It took a hell of a lot of effort and a willingness to actually break free from the norms, the societal norms that most of us are just taught to accept. Because we are told that you just go out and you get a job and you work 9 to 5 and then you come home and you get home at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock and then you kiss your kids goodnight and you then go and drink wine and binge on TV and whatever, right? That's the norm that most of us are taught to accept. And it's like when you kind of dare to explore something that is outside of that norm, it can feel a little bit scary. And I felt so much fear, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But a little bit about what my life looks like today, right? Like I design my days. I wake up when I want for the most part, except for when I have my 5-year-old staying with me. She comes in and she wakes me up normally at 6:30 every single day. But I get to create my day in the way that I want. I get to work when I want. So if I feel like working during the day, which most of the time I do, even though I don't subscribe to the typical 9 to 5 kind of work day or culture, I still work most of the time during the day. However, if and when I want to do something else in my day, can I work at night? Absolutely I can. And do I do that sometimes? Absolutely I can. But what this comes down to for me is getting to spend my days prioritizing what feels most important to me. Most days, during Monday to Friday, sometimes on a Sunday as well, that oftentimes that is building my business, certainly for a good part of the day anyway. But it's also taking care of myself and doing the things that make me feel good so that I can be the best mum that I can be, so that I can be the best coach that I can be, so that I can show up in my friendships and in my relationships to the best of my ability. Taking care of myself, or, spending time with my community, spending time with the people that I enjoy being around. But at the end of the day, the work that I do doesn't always feel like work. That's not to say that I am not working hard, but my work feels meaningful because I get to work with the most incredible people. I get to help them create their businesses and their offers and their content. And I get to help them create a life that they love, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Business is just one piece of creating a life that you love, right? But I guess the most important thing for me is that I get to do what I love, and I get to do it in a way that feels really good for my energy, for my values, and for my vision and where I want my life to go. And honestly, like the freedom that I've created, having the ability to choose how I spend my time, where I work from. Like I love nothing more than spending an hour or two in the morning working from a cafe. And I get to do that. If I was still in my corporate job, Would I have the opportunity to do that? Most probably not, because I'd be on the phone all day. Okay. But having this space and this freedom to choose how I spend my time, where I work, when I work, how I work, who I work with, who I take on as a client, has been an absolute game changer. And yes, the financial side of the freedom is amazing. But for me, it's about having the autonomy to live life on my own terms. And I think if we break it down, that's a big piece of why so many of us choose to go into business and because we want to live life on our own terms, and we want to do something that makes us feel like we're having an impact, and we just want to fucking love what we do, right? And that is something that I didn't experience when I was working in my 9 to 5. And I was working in my 9 to 5 pre-COVID, so we weren't working from home or anything like that back then. It was jumping on the train, train ride into the city, go into the office, spend time with people, some of them that you enjoyed being with, others not so much. Do the work that kind of just felt, I don't know how to say this, but mundane, boring, repetitive. Certainly nothing like what I'm doing today. Yes, there were elements of my work that I enjoyed. And yes, there were elements of being in an office that I really enjoyed. Like, I loved the social side of things. And if you ask anybody that I worked with, they would tell you that you could hear my laugh from one side of the floor on the other side of the floor. And I was okay with that because, a big piece of me being who I am is being who I am. And that comes with a big laugh sometimes. And that comes with the desire to kind of, talk a lot and just kind of enjoy myself. And I really did bring that into my corporate job. But having the opportunity to work on my own terms, live on my own terms has changed my life, obviously. But if I'm being real, and I will always be real with you on the podcast, it did not come easy, right? It required so much courage from me, within me, to actually step away from that security, right? And I say security loosely because when you're working in a 9 to 5 job, anything can happen in any moment. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't sort of put enough focus on. Is that we say that a 9 to 5 gives us security, but how much security really is there? You look at how many people lost their jobs throughout COVID for one reason or another. You look at how many people will maybe take on a new job and then within a matter of months they're made redundant. How much security does a traditional 9 to 5 really give you? But that's a whole other conversation. But I guess breaking out of this societal norm, this conditioning that a 9 to 5 is the way that you live your life, that wasn't just a logistical shift for me. It was very much a mindset shift too. It meant really choosing to let go of this idea that stability and security only comes from working for someone else and only comes from someone else writing my paycheck every single week. And yeah, it took me some time to actually really get my energy behind that. And even after I did, like, there were so many fears after I actually left my job. I left my job the day that I was meant to go back after maternity leave. Sorry. There were so many fears that came with that. And when I did it, I was like, oh my God, like what the fuck have I just done? Have I done the right thing? Like, have I made a mistake? Am I being completely irresponsible leaving my job when I have a 7-month-old baby and I don't know what I want to do? Because in that moment, I did not know what I wanted to do. Like, I knew that there was more for me. I knew that there was more to explore, but exactly what that was, I didn't really know. And I tried a couple of different things, and those, experiences turned out not to be my jam, but I met some amazing people along the way. But it was really, I guess my willingness to face my fears. And I knew deep down that I could stay working in that job and I could have the secure paycheck and I could catch the train to work. Like, my intention after having Layla was to probably go back to work, I think it was 5 days a fortnight or 3 days a week, whatever it was. Can I drop her at childcare or my mum's house or wherever, catch the train, go to work, get back by the time that she's then ready for bed, and then miss all of those, what I felt to be really important and really special moments. And I knew kind of going back to that corporate life, like, would have been such a conflict in my values, and it just did not sit right with me. So I had to make that terrifying, courageous decision to take the leap without knowing what was on the other side. And as scary as it was also really exciting because, yes, there was this security of receiving my paycheck every single week and, being able to call up sick and then have someone else pick up the slack, right? All of those kind of, I guess, perks you have in the 9-to-5 world. But there was also, it was like that, there was a ceiling, right? There was only so far that I was, I guess, willing to go in that environment without compromising even more on my values and even more on what was important to me. Whereas when I chose to go through that other door where it was all completely unknown, it was very exciting because, okay, yes, it's terrifying on one hand, but on the other side, anything is possible. I literally had the opportunity to create my life, design my life in the way that I wanted. But I had to trust myself enough to do that. I had to trust myself that even though I didn't have it all figured out and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, I had to trust that the vision would start to unfold, and that the more that I followed things that felt good, the more that I just kind of chose to put myself out there and get a little bit uncomfortable and, go to different events and that sort of thing. The more that I just trusted in that, I just knew that the universe was going to meet me there. If I chose to show up for myself, then the universe would meet me there and show up for me too. And I remember one moment where things started to change for a little. I'd been dabbling in these other kind of MLM businesses and things that just didn't feel like me, but I knew that I had to give them a go because I just felt like I was being led somewhere else. When that happens in life where you just kind of feel like, this just doesn't feel right, but I'm not ready to completely close the door on it yet because I feel like there is another kind of breadcrumb that's being dropped in front of me that I just kind of need to go over to. And if I continue to follow the path, then I'm going to find something else is going to find me, or I'm going to find something. And I remember going to my beautiful now friend, Claire, ran this incredible event. And it was one of the first kind of workshops or self-development kind of events that I went to. And I went with my girlfriend who I'd met through the MLM business. And I went there and it was out in McLaren Vale and it was a beautiful thing. And I had to get my daughter looked after. And I remember dropping her at Golden Grove at my mum's house and then driving nearly 2 hours to McLaren Vale for this event. And then I remember the drive home. And it was and I've spoken to Claire about this and we talk about this quite a bit. And it was something had been activated within me. And I was I'm meant to be a fucking coach. I know that I am meant to be a coach. I am meant to do something. I am just meant to do the things and to follow the things that I'm passionate about. And I remember driving home feeling just so excited and so activated, my whole body was just vibrating. I had been exactly where I was meant to be that day. And I was Claire is still such a mentor for me and I look up to her so much. She's been on the podcast. Wait, no, I've been on her podcast. Either way, it doesn't matter. Anyway, and I remember driving home thinking I am meant to be coaching. I am meant to be coaching. And then the next step from there was doing my NLP, doing my master practitioner. And then it just started to unfold. It started to unfold. But I had to put in the work to create that. Yes, the kind of, the vision started to unfold with flow and with ease. And, I just allowed myself to trust where I was going and it came. But in terms of actually creating the business, that there had to be action. There had to be action. And back then, I was home all day, every day with a little child. She was probably 1 back then. And so she was a little bit more demanding of my attention than when she was in those newborn days. I had to actually, entertain her a bit more. But I was using all of the pockets of my time that I possibly could. And that meant nap time. That meant nights when she was asleep, right? It meant me using this time to start showing up, to start making videos where I felt so fucking uncomfortable and so unconfident in myself, right? But starting to take these actions that I just knew would somehow compound. It started with me letting myself go to more of these workshops and eventually feeling okay, I'm ready to start investing in a coach, right? My first coach who I talked about before. I'm ready to start investing in myself. I'm ready to let somebody help me create some systems that are actually going to work, right? And now I have this flow, and don't take that to mean that I do not work. I still have to work in my business, right? But I have this flow and I have this ease and I have this ability to kind of work in my business and do the things on my own terms because I did put in that work, right? After a lot of resistance, don't get me wrong, as I shared before, when my coach Haley said, you've got to start showing up like this is a business. Okay. That was the moment that side of things changed. But I guess I say all this to, I suppose encourage you. Like if you are someone who's, maybe you're either dreaming of like breaking out of this 9-to-5 matrix, or maybe you are someone who you are going all in on your business, or you feel like you're going all in on your business, but you're not sure if it's going to work. And I say that very loosely because it will always work. Your success is always inevitable as long as you keep going. And I mean, hand on heart, I mean that. It is absolutely possible for you to create the business that you desire, no matter what your current reality looks like right now, no matter where you were yesterday. Your tomorrow, your next week, your next month, your next year can look however you desire it to look. But it requires courage. It requires effort. And it requires you to be willing to actually go against the grain. Okay, you have to believe that the life that you desire to create is actually worth the work and the hustle and the risk that it's going to take for you to create it. And creating this life and creating this kind of business is not just about the strategy, and it's not just about the work, right? And if you know, like if you've been listening to me and you've worked with me before, you know that the way that I roll is, yes, we combine the strategy and we combine the energetics in a way that nobody else does. But it is also about the courage. Because stepping outside of what feels safe, what feels comfortable, what feels even acceptable, like is not something that sort of happens lightly, okay? It's going to challenge you. It's going to challenge everything that you have been taught about stability. It's going to challenge everything that you've been taught about success and how your life is supposed to look. Okay, because think about it, and I think I started talking about this before, but like, how many of us were raised to believe that the path to success is you go to school, you go to uni, you go and get a stable job, and you work your way up that corporate fucking ladder, right? And it's this like linear path. And maybe that works for some people, and maybe that fulfills you and that makes you feel joy, and I fucking love that for you. But for some people, and if you're anything like me, that feels stifling and it feels like you are being restricted and you're being contained. And it kind of feels like you're just trading your dreams for a paycheck. And for me, that feels really, as much as I like talked before about all of the fears that are associated with, breaking out of that life, for me, the scarier thing was staying in that life. The scarier thing was me continuing to trade my dreams and to trade my time in a way that felt so conflicting to what was important to me for a paycheck. That felt so scary. So you're going to have to challenge your fears and your doubts. And you're going to have all of these questions come up. You're going to question yourself, like, what if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life? And guess what? Maybe that will happen. Maybe you will fail. I use the term fail loosely because I don't believe in failure. I believe in feedback. Okay? People most likely are going to judge you. People most likely are going to talk about you. You may make some huge mistakes. I have made so many mistakes. And I am still here. And I have still created and am still on the path to creating this life that I love and a lifestyle that I get to enjoy every single day. And honestly, like, I believe if you're asking yourself these questions, then that means that you're on the path to creating something pretty big and pretty special. And the thing about courage and what I've learned about courage, and with all the courageous decisions that I've made and all of the courageous moves that I've made, is that it's not about not having fear. It's not about being fearless. I don't necessarily believe in fearless. But it's about looking at that fear, staring it dead in the eyes, seeing it for what it is, because it's a story, and doing the thing anyway. And it's really about choosing to prioritize your desires over your fears. Choosing to, I guess, to realize and to know that what you want to create and what you want to build is worth more than that kind of discomfort that you might feel from breaking out of the mold or from breaking out of whatever these barriers and these fears are for you. And yeah, like for me, that meant letting go of that supposed security of the 9 to 5. It meant letting go of the friends that I had in that workplace and, that kind of, the social aspect. Like it meant letting go of all of that. And it meant that I had to put trust in myself and only myself to create something better and to create an even better life and to create something that was going to feel even more fulfilling and more in alignment with my values and more on fucking purpose. And that moment that I decided to resign from my job on the day that I was meant to go back, it wasn't a glamorous moment. It was messy and it was emotional and I was terrified. And I think I walked around my house all day, probably holding Layla because she was 7 months old. So scared. But I also knew that I just could not continue, or I couldn't go back to living that life that just felt so out of alignment for me. And that's when I realized, I was like, yeah, you know what? The only thing scarier than actually going all in on my dreams is not. And staying stuck in a life that didn't feel like mine. And there were so many other aspects of that life that didn't feel like mine that would then unfold. And there were more courageous decisions that were made over time. Okay. But just knowing that I was not meant to stay in that life. And if I did, who knows? I wouldn't be speaking to you about this. I wouldn't be impacting the humans that I'm impacting now. I wouldn't be creating this ripple effect that I know that I'm creating in the world and that I know is going to get bigger and better and bolder as time goes on. But, the courage that is required to tap into, it's not just about this one leap either. It's not just about this one moment in time. It's about showing up every single day when it feels hard. It's about being willing to try something and to, again, using this term loosely, to fail, but most importantly, to learn and to grow, and trusting that the way that you're showing up today is compounding and that the effort that you're putting in today is paying off, even when you can't see the results right in this moment, even when you can't see the results right now. That's the kind of courage that you need to tap into to create the life and the business that truly feels good for you. Okay? But if you are standing on the edge of this decision, whether it's leaving your 9 to 5, whether it's starting a business, whether it's stepping into a bigger, bolder version of yourself, whatever it is, I want you to know that you can do it. And it's not going to feel easy all the time. And it's not always going to feel comfortable, and you will be tested beyond your limits, and it will be the most worthwhile thing that you do. The courage to break from the norm, to break out of the norm, is you choosing to really open that door to whatever awaits you on the other side, because you don't necessarily know. And yes, while that feels scary, isn't that also the most exciting thing possible? Because when we don't know what's next, it means that literally anything is possible. Okay, so I also wanted to share, I'm very aware now that I have been talking for quite some time, probably a little bit longer than a usual podcast, but let's go with it. I also wanted to share some practical tips, right, for you to kind of step into this place of aligned hustle. Okay, because remember, anything worth creating, I truly believe that anything worth creating is not just going to fall out of the air and into your lap. We are going to be required to show up. We are going to be required to put in work, to put in effort, to face our fears, to be courageous, to be willing to hustle. So what are some steps? What are some tips? What are some ways that we can actually embrace this and do this hustle in a more aligned way? So the first thing, number one, would be to clarify your vision. Okay? When you have this deep connection to why you're doing what you're doing, what your bigger picture is, what your legacy is, then it's going to feel way easier to show up. And you're going to feel way more on purpose. You're going to feel like the hustle, there's actually a reason for this. There's a purpose behind the hustle. Okay, that's number one. Number two is actually let yourself tune into your body and ask yourself, does this action feel expansive? Does this actually feel good for me? Or does this feel like I'm caging myself? Does this feel misaligned? Okay, so you've got to learn to really trust your intuition and allow your intuition to guide your actions, right? Whether you notice a feeling in your gut, whether you notice a feeling in your chest or your heart space, allow yourself to tune into whatever feels true for you when you're making decisions. Okay, so like for example, does it feel right to start a business in this moment in time? If you were to ask yourself that question, how does that feel? Where do you feel it in your body? What are the feelings that come up? Does it feel expansive or does it feel constrictive? And then maybe the other question that you ask so that you can even compare the feelings is, do I go and find a job or do I stay in my job? And notice the difference in the feelings. Okay, that can be a really powerful way to let your intuition guide your actions. Number three, setting boundaries. Now, this is still something that I am working on. However, I'm going to share it as a tip because it is something that I'm working on for 2025. Because hustle doesn't mean working 24/7. It doesn't mean just doing and taking action just for the sake of doing it. Okay? And it doesn't mean that you need to work from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment that you go to bed. You've got to create boundaries and still honor your own energy. You've got to take care of your well-being, and you've really got to be able to balance whatever it is that you're doing with the things that allow you to take care of yourself. Whether that be, you have like a self-care day or a self-care half a day, or, an hour every day where you just do something for yourself. Whether that mean that you don't look at your phone and check your messages and check your like your client containers until you've done something for yourself in the day. Whether it means that you very intentionally create time to go and spend with your friends and the people that light you up once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. These boundaries are so important. And as I said, this is something that I have committed to getting better at over 2025. It's 1:11 p.m. by the way. I love that. Number 4, celebrate the small wins. Okay, so we've got to transcend beyond the vanity metrics, beyond what social media tells us is working and is successful. Those small things and the small ways that you show up for yourself, the small, seemingly small celebrations actually mean a lot. Okay, so maybe instead of celebrating the fact that, you got 30 likes on a piece of content, whatever, maybe you're celebrating the fact that you showed up every day and you went live on your story, or you went live on Instagram, you shared stories to invite people into your offers every single day. Okay, we've got to get really good at celebrating the non-tangible wins, as well as obviously celebrating when new clients come into our containers, when we hit certain milestones and that sort of thing. Okay, but celebrating the small wins is absolutely key. And then number 5 is design your day intentionally. Okay, so if you are in your own business, right, like you get to create your schedule in a way that supports you, that supports your desire for freedom, that supports your creativity, and that supports the results that you want to get. Okay, we've always got to come back to like it's supporting the results that you want to get. Because if you're out there saying like, oh, I want to make 5 figures every single month, yet you're only showing up when you feel like it and when you feel like you're in flow and when it feels easy, then you're probably gonna be challenged when it comes to actually hitting that goal and getting that result. Okay? Design your day intentionally. So how can you create that time for yourself, for your other commitments? And maybe you are still working and you're creating your business on the side, or maybe you're working part-time, whatever it is. We've still got to make time for our commitments. And how can you add in, did I say time for yourself? Yes, I've already said that. But like, what can your schedule get to look like, and how can you design this very intentionally so that you're taking care of yourself, so that you're honoring your other commitments and that you're supporting your own creativity and, whether you're creating content, whatever the things are. Okay. So design your day intentionally in a way that you're also doing, things when they feel good for you, right? So like for me, content creation feels really good in the morning. So on a typical school day, like I'll drop Layla at school and then I'll go and sit at a cafe for an hour and I'll create some content. And that's all I do in that hour, right? And then I do my client check-ins at a certain time that feels good for me as well, right? So it's not just about going like, oh, I don't feel like doing that today, so I'm not going to do it. It's how can I schedule around those times when I feel like my most energetic and when I feel my most, alive and whatever, okay? You get to create your day in your own way. So that's it for this episode. I want to bring you back to the point that you don't have to subscribe to society's rules of success. You are allowed and, in fact, encouraged to create your own rules for how you live your life, for how you create your business, for how you do all the things. Okay, like I truly do not believe that we are here to fit the mold. We're here to break that motherfucker. So learn kind of how to hustle when it feels really good. Rest when you need to. Honor your body, honor your cycles, and trust that when you are showing up and you're taking action in an aligned way, when you're taking care of your energy, when you are prioritizing yourself and you're still showing up and you're taking action, as long as you keep doing it and you keep doing it consistently and you keep doing it with intention and with purpose, I truly, truly believe that your success is inevitable. The only way you will not succeed is if you choose to stop. And if you choose to just kind of sit on your meditation pillow 24/7 in favor of actually putting in some fucking work. All right. Thank you so, so much for listening. It would mean the world to me if you enjoyed this episode, if you would pop over and give us a 5-star rating, leave a little review if you feel called, and share it with your friends so that we can get this podcast into the ears of more and more amazing conscious humans. All right. Until next time, I love you. You have fucking got this.